right, so the first thing that I want to do before we get into the syllabus is to just make sure that we understand these particular terms. These are things that CSE asks us to do. They often ask us to outline, they often ask us to identify, differentiate, describe, evaluate, and explain. So what we'll be doing first is going through the definitions of these terms. So the first one that we have here is outline, and it is basically a summary of all the available information, and it should just be the main points without any extra details. And as you can see here, it says that it requires only a short answer. So this is the time where you guys can interact. If I told you guys to outline 3 challenges or 3 problems associated with online school, what would you tell me? I see Kavita, sorry. Not y'all have to help me pronounce these names. Kavita, Khalif, and okay. Well, I guess I will just give you all an example then of outlining. So if I said to outline the challenges associated with online school, I will first probably say that it is difficult to focus in online school. The second challenge, it is less interactive and engaging. And then technical problems often take away from class time. Those are 3 challenges. I have outlined 3 challenges that are associated with online school. The next word, or the next thing that CSE may ask us to do, is to identify, and that is basically pointing out and describing the main ideas in a short and coherent way. So the same example that I gave you all, where I asked you all to outline, what if I said to identify 3 features, for example, of a smartphone? We can say that it is small and compact, and it is the size of my hand. We can also say that it has a touch screen where you can press particular characters on the screen to use it. And then lastly, we can say that smartphones are durable. We can say that as they can last up to 5 years. The next term that we have here is differentiate, and this is you basically showing the difference, or you telling them the difference between these 2 things that they ask you to compare. So for example, if I say differentiate between a chef and a doctor, you would probably say something like a chef, cooks food, or he gets paid for cooking food, while a doctor gets paid for taking care and diagnosing patients. Differentiating between the 2. So you just point out the difference between the 2 elements or things that they want you to compare. The next term is to describe, and this is outlining and giving details about the characteristics of what they're asking you for. So yes, you simply state what it is that they're asking, but you also have to give details. So for example, if a question, or just example, say I said describe Miss Mears, you would say that she has hair, but you wouldn't just say that she has hair. You would say that she has long or extensions in, and it's black and it's twisted. And for example, if you want to describe my eyes, you would say that they're, I don't know if they're big, medium size, and almond shape. You just give extra details about what is being asked for. The second last one is to evaluate, and they're basically asking you to form a judgment of the matter at hand and giving reasons why. So they want you to basically form a judgment using the pros and cons. So for example, if you walked into a corner store, let's say you walked into a supermarket, or you're at a supermarket, and someone would say to you, I just want you to evaluate this supermarket. You would you go into the supermarket, sorry, you go into the supermarket and it's nicely laid out, it smells nice, the air conditioning is fine, they have a wide variety of um, items, things that can be purchased. But you go into the supermarket and you say, "Good morning, can you tell me the price of XYZ?" And the cashier looks at you stink. She looks at you like she doesn't want to work, or she prefers not to be working, and she carries you on by. She's like, you don't gonna ask if the price there, blah 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 blah, and she carried on. When you come back out of the store and someone asks you to evaluate the store, you will say, well, the store it is nicely laid out. The aesthetics are nice. Everything is laid out nicely. Air conditioning is good. There is music, etc., etc. However, the customer service there is not up to par. Like, it can tarnish your reputation of the business. So that's what they mean by evaluating. Explain that you are basically clarifying a topic, and what is recommended or what you should do is pretend or imagine that you're writing for somebody that knows absolutely nothing about the subject or the concept or whatever the case may be. And you must ensure that you provide or you give definitions of any jargon or key terms that are associated with the particular concept or idea that they're asking you to explain. So I hope that these definitions, breaking down the definitions of these terms, were helpful, and that you have a better understanding of what CSC will be asking you to do. So I have a little some diagrams there, some pictures there, and this is Brathwaite's village. We're getting into the syllabus now. So this is Brathwaite's village, and in Brathwaite's village, the people really truly, they don't use a lot of money. They provide for themselves. They provide enough, or they supply enough to survive. So they plant their own vegetables, as you can see here. They raise their own animals. They have their own eggs. They hunt, all that stuff. And they're basically, as I said, providing or producing enough to survive. And this is basically called a subsistence economy, where people produce enough to survive on an individual, family, or group basis. Y'all understand? Okay. So as time goes on, they start producing more. They start producing, more potatoes. You realize, for example, let's say that I live in Brathwaite's village, and my household continues produces more potatoes and more vegetables, or we produce more chickens, or we have a surplus of chickens, or we have a surplus of eggs. Then what do we do with that excess, knowing that there is no money? What did people do before money existed? No money. So as I said earlier, we produce, let's say my household, we produce more chickens. We have a surplus of chickens this particular week. And because we produce so much chickens, we often eat chicken. And we just wanted a change. We were tired of eating grilled chicken, baked chicken, boiled chicken, you name it. And we wanted some carbs to go along with our meal. So we said, I want some potatoes. I would like to have some either mashed potatoes or grilled potatoes or whatever the case may be. And we think, and we remember that Mr. Brown down the road, he produces potatoes, he produces other vegetables, but we know him for producing lots and lots and lots of potatoes. So we approach him, we go down to him, and we say, well, Mr. Brown, I have a chicken here that I brought for you because we had excess chicken at home, or whatever the case may be, and we know that you have potatoes. Are you willing to give me a bag of potatoes for this whole chicken that I have here? And Mr. Brown is like, sure, yes, why not? Why not? So the exchange occurred. there was an exchange for chicken with potatoes. This process is called barter or bartering. We can say that Mr. Brown and myself or my household, we barter. And bartering, this is basically the exchanging of goods and services for other goods without using money. It requires that the two persons involved in the exchange had what each other wanted. So the key things to note is that it is the exchanging of goods and services for other goods without using money. And it is required that both the persons involved in the exchange have what each other wanted. So Mr. Brown and I, you can say that we were happy because we traded without having to use money. We did not have to pull our pockets. We did not have to go to the ATM. Nothing. We didn't have to do any of that. We just had to trade. We just traded. We both got rid of the surplus of goods that we had by trading. So, it wasn't a case where I had the extra chickens and I had to eat chickens all day, every day, or these chickens spoiled or anything like that. We got rid of the surplus. He got rid of the surplus of his potatoes by trading with me. There was more availability of goods. So as I said before, I didn't have to eat all chicken, and he didn't have to eat all vegetables. And this process of exchange laid the foundation for the organized way of trading that we have today. So trading around between countries, when we buy things, that's an exchange, that's trading. We exchanging money for the particular good or service that we are purchasing. Everyday trading, if it is that you decide to trade, pencils for pen with your friend or something, whatever the case may be, it is trading, and it has laid the foundation of the organized way of trading that we have today. Okay, so what if Mr. Brown was vegan and I brought a chicken in hopes of getting some potatoes from him? Then what? Can we still barter? I think not. I think not. And this leads to the disadvantages. This leads to the disadvantages. And we can see here that barter is not possible if there is not a double coincidence of wants. So as I mentioned in a few slides before, where I said that both persons must have what each other wanted. Both persons involved in the exchange must have what each of them wanted. So in the case of Mr. Brown and I, initially he had what not initially, but yeah, when I said that he was vegan, he had what I wanted, but I did not have what he wanted, because he said, suppose as you can see here in the background, suppose Mr. Brown was vegan. There's difficulty finding an equitable exchange rate. So how many potatoes is worth one chicken? 5 pounds, 5 bags of potatoes is worth one chicken. Is chicken, rearing, like, I guess, taking care of the chickens and getting it to a stage where it's killed so that it can be eaten. Is that process longer than the process of growing potatoes and harvesting them? How do we find that equitable exchange rate? Then there are often difficulties in dividing the goods fairly. I now have to divide, let's say, like one piece of chicken is equal to 40 or 6 potatoes. Now I have to divide my chicken into 6 parts. I have to divide the potatoes into 5, and it's messy. So it doesn't allow me or Mr. Brown to store the wealth chicken does not last forever. We know that food spoils. Neither do potatoes. Potatoes can go bad really quickly. So as time went by, um, from the whole system of bartering, people realized that they could use small valuable items to facilitate exchange instead of using goods. So they use things like shells and beads and animal teeth to facilitate exchange. So monetary systems were introduced in order to combat the challenges associated with barter, and some market economies or money economies started to engage in purchasing goods and services using money. But in what form? As we can see here, they use the cowrie shells, they use beads, things like beads and animal teeth. You know, these items were small, they were divisible, um, they did not they did not spoil quickly. Right, so we see that right. So these small valuable items were accepted as money back then. Items like these were the earliest forms of money. And anybody could tell me why they think that these items, the cowrie shells, the beads, and the animal teeth were used as money? Okay, well, I'll go ahead. It's simply because they had the same characteristics of money. And because they had the same characteristics of money, they took on the role of money. They could basically do what money does back in the day. I have here, could you tell me some of the characteristics of the shells, beads, and teeth that would make them take on the roles of money? Kavita? I just check back here to see. Okay. Right. So the some of the characteristics that took on the characteristics of shells, beads, and teeth that made them take on the role of money were, or the first one is that shells, beads, etc. were limited in number, which made them scarce and as a result valuable. And we know that anything that is scarce is valuable. It is very, very valuable. Let's say there were only 5 Lamborghinis in the whole entire world, or 5 um, Louis Vuitton bags, whatever the case may be. If they were limited in number, if anything that's limited in number, it is valuable. And money is also scarce, which makes it valuable. Not everybody has access to money. Money, you have to work for it first of all. Is very hard to acquire. It's not here at our fingertips, and that because of that, it is scarce and it is valuable. The next characteristic of money is that it is acceptable. So people are willing to, or sorry, they were willing to accept the shells as money because they knew it could be used for future trading purposes. And even if we look at money today, we know that even though there are different currencies throughout many different countries, if you pull out a bill or coins, people know that this is money, and so that and so they accept it. If you go into a store right now and you give somebody some rocks, you want buy a I don't know, you want to buy something, an item, and you give them some rocks, say like, I give you this amount of rocks, these 5 rocks here, so that I could purchase um this fan or this plant. They look at you like if you're crazy. However, if you give them money, they will accept it. So it's widely accepted around the world. Another characteristic of these shells that made them take on the role of money was that they were portable. They could be easily carried for long distances. So in the case of barter, let's say you had a cow and you wanted a sheep, and you had to carry that whole cow on your back or whatever the case may be, that to meet the person with the sheep, that is too heavy, that is not portable, that is unrealistic. And so the items like shells, and in our case today money, it can be carried for long distances. It is portable, it is easily carried. The next characteristic is that these shells were durable. They were hard wearing, long lasting, and did not spoil easily, like something like food or produce or anything like that. It did not spoil easily. The shells were hard. And so the same thing with money. Money does not, unless you decide to tear it up. Money is durable for the most part. The coins are durable, the dollars, the bills are durable, and they last long. I've seen, I hear in Barbados we had years ago we had a $1 bill, but that's no longer in place. But certain people or certain households probably still keep them as, I guess, like just keep them, I can show my children these in the future, and they show them to us, and they're still in good condition. They're still in very good condition. So money is durable, so just like the shells were durable. And the last characteristic of money is that it is divisible. And similar to the shells, they could be supplied in different amounts to purchase various items of various sizes or amounts. So if they had a small box of juice, a medium box of juice, and a large box of juice, you can pay $5. You can pay for the small box of juice, you can pay $10 for the medium size and $20 for the large one. And if you wanted to buy something for $5, you can simply split it into 5 single dollars, 5 single coins, or we will say here 20, around like 20-25 cents, or we could put it into two $2 bills, and the dollar. Money is divisible just as the shells and the animal teeth and the bees are divisible. Therefore, we can say that the characteristics of money are scarcity, portability, durability, divisibility, and acceptability. And those were the characteristics that we just went through. Okay, so the last thing that we will be doing or talking about is the function of money, or the functions of money. And the first thing is that is a medium or facilitator of exchange. So because money is accepted as a means by which you can pay for goods and services, it can facilitate exchange. And we talked about that characteristic, acceptability, earlier on. So because it's acceptable, we can use it to facilitate exchange. When you are buying something, you give the seller money in exchange for the item being bought. The next characteristic of money is that it is a unit, not characteristic, function, sorry. is that it is a unit of account, and it allows for measurement and comparison of different things. The price of an item can be measured by how much units of currency it is worth. So the, the same example with the milk, you can have a small milk for $5. You can have a medium one for 10, and then a large one for 20. A poor quality phone, as you can see here, a poor quality phone may cost $100, but a high quality one can cost $700 and up. So it is a unit of account. The next characteristic is that it is a store of value. And it is basically saying that money can be saved and used in the future without losing is supposed to be there, without losing its value. So if you decide that you are going to put I don't know, $5 in your piggy bank every day, and at the end of the year you probably have around $1,000, $2,000. When you go at the end of the year, you check your piggy bank, or you go years later, it will be the same amount. It will not, the value will not be lost. The value will not have been increased. It is the um, same value throughout. So money can be saved and used in the future without losing its value. It says that money can be borrowed and paid back at a later date, and this is for the function being a standard for deferred payments. So you can borrow money today and you can pay it back later. You can pay it back at a later date. I think that, yes, that's it for today's class. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. I just want to know if there are any topics that you would like me to go through or to teach.